Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the video series on the 6 functions of problem exploration for the change and implementation process. This series is produced by the Capacity Building Center for States and funded by the Children's Bureau. In this module, we're going to learn more about putting a data plan into action in the third function of problem exploration, collect and analyze the data. Remember, at this point, the team has already identified the problem and created a data plan to explore the problem. Before moving on to identify the possible contributing factors and possible root causes, exploring and validating the possible root causes, or isolating the root cause or causes to address. Today we will talk about strategies to collect and analyze the data that teams have identified in their data plan to help answer their research questions. Let's get started. Examining data helps a team determine whether the identified problem can be validated, or if there's a nuance that the team may not have included before. Teams should strive to use data to verify their problem, understand under what circumstances the problem occurs, and identify who is affected before moving forward in a change process. Without doing this, teams run the risk of implementing ineffective solutions. It also helps teams to tell a more complete story. When teams collect and analyze data on a problem or unmet need, it helps them to better understand the scope and impact it is having on the community. Teams can begin this step by compiling and organizing the data sources described in their data plan. There are a few key methods of analyzing data that help teams dig deeper. Disaggregating data, or breaking it down, is a way for teams to look at differences among the experiences of specific groups and understand different slices of the story. For example, instead of looking at data for all parents, what can the team learn by looking at data for mothers and fathers separately? Disaggregating data helps teams narrow in on critical issues within the identified problem that might be overlooked otherwise. Examining the characteristics of the groups most impacted helps a team see areas where they want to dig deeper, performing more analysis or adding different data sources to fully understand the problem. The goal is to get as specific as possible about the population affected by the problem. For example, if you want to understand which children are most impacted by reentry, you could start with the entire population for whom reentry is possible, all children who reunify, for example. Then you can compare the children who do reenter with those that do not. Visual data displays, like graphs and charts, help a team bring data to life by illustrating what is discovered during analysis. Using data visuals can help a team understand the characteristics and see variations in the data more easily. This can be especially effective for looking at demographic and service characteristics and trends over time. As with any change management step, it is important to consider feasibility and recognize that there are sometimes limitations in what child welfare agencies can do to reach ideal data analysis. If the team needs additional support, consider partnering with data experts from inside or outside of the agency who can help strengthen the results of data collection and analysis. As a team collects and analyzes data, it is important to ask the following questions. What story does the data tell? What variations or patterns exist in the data? Where are there differences in outcomes? What are the characteristics of those most affected by the problem? What are the strengths and limitations of the analysis and its findings? Now it's time to check in with our example. As shown in the brief, the team collected data from the statewide CFSR. In a broad view, CFSR Item 12, Needs Assessment and Services, was identified as an area for improvement in a majority of cases. When exploring this data further, they noticed a trend among cases with parents. With this revelation, the state team has some information that helps them understand the scope of the problem and who is most affected. Disaggregating the data allowed the team to take it one step further. Looking at the data more closely leads them to discover that the problem not only impacts parents, it largely impacts fathers. What other data sources do you think the team might want to review to get a better understanding of the problem? When the team has fully analyzed the available data, what do you think might be their next step? Their next step in problem exploration is to identify the possible contributing factors and root cause or causes. Let's take a moment to check in on what you've learned about collecting and analyzing data. Why do teams collect and analyze data? To validate the identified problem and tell the team the story behind it, helping them to better understand the scope and impact it is having on the community. How do teams collect and analyze data? By breaking the data down, identifying characteristics of those affected, using visual displays, and seeking help when needed. What can help teams to collect and analyze data? Looking for the story in the data, seeking variations and patterns, differences in outcomes and characteristics of those affected, and acknowledging the strengths and limitations of the analysis. Now, take this a step further by reviewing the reflection questions for collect and analyze data in the Problem Exploration Workbook. We look forward to seeing you in our next session on identifying possible contributing factors and root causes.